Well, thanks for the great introduction, Jess. I'll try to return the favour when we're next working together or something, and introduce you as kindly as you have done me there. So nice to meet you all. A couple of friendly faces on the call, and my little plan for the next 30 minutes or so is to chat a little bit about the North Devon Biosphere and some of the projects that we're trying to keep up with, particularly my one that looks at community involvement with biodiversity and climate positive action. Then I thought towards the end I might just touch on a couple of little strategies that I've just used over the years. One is called co-design, which is a method really to get people on board with something, especially if the problem or the solution isn't obvious to a problem, and something called COM-B, which is about behavioural change, which our colleagues in the NHS use quite a lot. So without further ado, what I thought I would do is go to a safe place and just get out a great big map. And folks, have you ever noticed that some of the best things start with a group of people looking at a map? Could be a visit around the Lake District or just trying to find somewhere home. This is the best map of all, of course, because it's the planet. And I hear we only have one planet, so it's really important that we look after everything on that map. But UNESCO is trying to do its best. So United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, and how it sort of manifests are various sort of designations or fingerprints across the planet, really. And we can zoom into our map of the United Kingdom. Now, some of the UNESCO sites might be World Heritage sites, which tends to be what people are most familiar with. So this is your Stonehenges, sometimes geoparks. So the Jurassic Coast down in Dorset, where I used to live for a little while. And in Devon, we've got a few sites. So Exeter is a UNESCO City of Literature, for example. And the North Devon spot of land is our first biosphere. So this is what it is, and it's that great big red line going around, and you can see it goes all the way out to Lundy Island, around the no-take zone, and about 13 miles buffer around down to Hartland, inland all the way down to Oakhampton, then rocketing up through the two moors up to Lymouth and Linton. And then joining back round. And the point, if you like, of the UNESCO Biosphere is that core area of Braunton Burrows sand dunes. So a lot of UNESCO Biosphere sites sort of hang its hat on landscape designation. So it might be a site of special scientific interest or a special area of conservation. And Braunton Dunes is of international significance just because some of the flora and fauna that call that place home. But if I was to leave the office now between me and the car and ask anyone who's lived in North Devon for 30, 40 years, have you heard of the Biosphere? They'll probably go, maybe. It's on that sign, isn't it? Where they come in on the A39, having left Devon, or to go east, or when they're returning back from Cornwall, it says, "Welcome to North Devon, world class by nature. You're now entering the UNESCO Biosphere." And to me, that's kind of okay. And the point then of the Biosphere is to look after all of the air, land, and water that is within that area. Also, all of the flora and fauna that call that place home, particularly this really complex animal called the human being, which we've got a really good habit of setting up really complex societies. And the whole idea of the United Nations and the 17 Sustainable Development Goals is that we should be able to go from cradle to the grave, living a life of prosperity, respect, free of persecution and unfairness and whatnot. And how the biosphere is different from other landscape designations, we've got an outstanding natural beauty along the coast, is that it's really progressive. So if the AONB is a snapshot in time, North Devon coast looks absolutely fantastic. Let's never change that. The idea of the biosphere then is that it should look different. So and the North Devon Biosphere, as the UK's first, is seen as quite a progressive one. The United Nations weirdly sees North Devon as quite an experimental site and was part of the Man in the Biosphere programme in the early 2000s. So when there's something a bit weird going on around climate change or sustainable business development and whatnot, we give it a spin in North Devon. And if it takes well, then that's when we share that model out across the UK and a bit more broadly. I do encourage you, however, to have a little look at the North Devon Biosphere website because it's got loads of all of our projects. Everyone that works there has got a little pithy job title on there, and you can have a look at it in the fullness of time. So I've already outed myself, I guess, as a bit of a geographer by having the map immediately on our Zoom call straight away. And as a fresh geography graduate, I immediately started volunteering for these two organisations. So TCV, or the Trust for Conservation Volunteers. In my day, it was BTCV, the British Trust for Conservation Volunteers. A little project that I handled at the time was called Earn Your Travel Back. So for young people, if in central London, if they do something a bit silly on public transport, so the tube, the bus, or the London Underground, or whatever, they get their free travel Oyster card withdrawn from them. It's appropriate level of punitive response, I suppose, but for social mobility, absolute disaster. So suddenly these young people can't get to school. They can't go and do that Saturday job or whatever. So a little project that we had at the time was to work with the Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, and if these young people could come and complete 30, 40, 50, 60 hours of environmental conservation work, they were regifted back their Oyster card. And that sort of work might be tree planting or dormouse surveys or building a bridge over a river. So really project-based learning. And it was always a good clue for me and the other support workers if a young person, after their 50 hours was reached at the end of the finish line, they still wanted to come back to that 51st, 52nd, 53rd hour. The London Wildlife Trust, we looked after Biggin Hill, so where all the Spitfires were built in World War II, a little project there called From Thorn to Orchid, and that's kind of self-explanatory. A line manager at the time said, Tom, you really come alive when you're working with people in the outdoors. So how about you try and look at a career that can allow you to do that? So I fell into youth work with Croydon Council in South London. One of the in terms of London boroughs, it's got more young people than any other London borough, but very low subscription rates for children with additional needs. And sometimes there's hesitance within the household to even admit their young man needs glasses, let alone they might have other things like Asperger's or global delay and whatever else. So it was just in time for the London riots, guys. So I really cut my teeth trying to work with some very wild young men, sort it all out, but getting them out of the classroom into the Surrey Hills just so we can try and put them through some functional skills. Then I started working for Sayers Croft in Surrey. So a little link with the City of Westminster there. They bought a scrap of land in the run up to the Luftwaffe coming over London, and it was a bit of a blitz camp, and they've just kept hold of the shacks and the chalets in the middle of the Surrey forest, and now it's an outdoor learning hotspot. And I was there for about 18 months or so. Then I moved over to Swanage in South Dorset to work for the Allnat Group, another residential field centre, and it was great for me, folks, because when you do your case study work with GCSE geographers or A-level geographers, they open the book and it's Old Harry's Rock and Lulworth Cove. So you have to jump on the minibus and you're there in 5 minutes, an absolute geographer's dream. And some of these students going, oh, they didn't just make it up. It is actually a great big landform. And oh, Old Harry's wife did actually fall into the waves. I'm a bit sad now. But for the last 10 years or so before jumping over to working in the North Devon Biosphere, I was Deputy Head of Centre at Skirm Lodge in Appledore. So again, combining outdoor experiential learning on kayak with then those downstream characteristic studies. So being able to look at how meanders work while paddling along them. And for some of my climbing colleagues, being able to organise a clifftop abseil off of Heartland to have a look at the strata as we go down and complete a field sketch as the tide is coming in and chasing us off the beach. I've been involved with a couple of other little steering groups as well over the years. So Pledge for Nature was a biosphere project that ran for 2 or 3 years or so. And it was all around community engagement. And for me, really important for young people as well to have their good efforts recognised. And the Pledge for Nature map is still live now. And perhaps after the call, I can share the link with Jess and she can share it around. I was also still currently now on the Finding Nature's Footprints project, which is part of the North Devon National Landscapes, formerly the North Devon AOMB, which looks at getting our underrepresented community demographics in North Devon to engage with nature recovery or get out and about. For the last 8 years or so, I was also chairman for the Institute of Outdoor Learning's Field Studies Professional Practice Group. That's a hell of an acronym at the end of an email line. And that was all around supporting UK exam boards with their fieldwork requirements or non-examined assessment for A-level geography and biology. I'm founding member of the Wellbeing in Outdoor Environmental Education, which is out of Exeter University, and I also sit on the EDI or Quality, Diversity, Inclusivity Task Group for Natural England. These are a couple of groups that I still chair at the moment, and as Jess mentioned at the start of the call, NEED. So that's our professional practice group in Devon, and sits underneath the Local Nature Partnership, and in turn looks after the education strand of the LNRS, or the Local Nature Recovery Strategy, which DEFRA is getting us to renew for this year. Fingers crossed, it'll all go well at the end of March. And One Atlantic, which is part of the North Devon Primary Care Network, or PCN, and that looks at supporting public health and wellbeing, particularly in Bideford, but also surrounding areas as well. And for my sins also, I'm a pretty active member of the Tortoise Estuary Forum, so you can't talk with people about climate change or biodiversity without river water quality coming up. It's on the lips of a lot of people in North Devon, rightly so. But also I helped write the Charter for Sustainable Business Practice in North Devon as part of the Biosphere Business Partner Scheme. So I always sort of said that it would be a hell of a project to get me to put a lot of that type of stuff on the shelf for a little while. And when I saw the North Devon Biosphere had won a little bit of money from the lottery to put together a really pithy project for the next 4 years, I saw it when I was away on holiday in the Lake District, and I thought, I'm going to apply for that when I get off this mountain, and let's have a bit of a go at it. So it's really nuts also to see your core values and your beliefs so nicely articulated on a project brief or a funding application. So the Biosphere is a really good project management organization, and we try to manage about 4 or 5 or 6 projects at a time. And as Jess said at the start of the call, this one's mine. So Biosphere Communities aims to empower young people in Northern Devon to become champions for change in their communities, nature recovery and climate action. A network of experts will mentor, guide and support them, building knowledge and skills to deliver sustainable solutions. Our project will connect and encourage various local initiatives and will provide tailored help to ensure their work has a lasting impact for long-term success. So like, how couldn't I not get involved with that? So off I went. Now, one of the first things I saw was this, and some of us on the call might be a fan of theory of change, to always look at the core problem of why you're putting together a project or why you're going to the headmaster asking him to view things in a slightly different way. And other people more enjoy maybe the black box theory, which was really big. It still continues to be really big in outdoor activities and environmental education, where 50 learners come away to a residential centre up in North Wales. Something happens over those 2 nights, 3 days. They go back to school, attainment's increased, their exam output is better, their well-being is boosted, etc. What happened while they were away? Don't really know. They skipped some stones and had a croissant in the morning. Yeah, not really sure. So for theory of change, it reminds me of the core problem of why the Biosphere applied for this funding. So supposedly, folks, there's inadequate community engagement to achieve nature recovery and address climate challenge in the North Devon Biosphere through SLM, which is Sustainable Land Management. Now, it's quite handy for me because when I've been talking to the project team, I've described this as, guys, this is our mountain summit here. This is the top of the mountain. Now, we're quite a long way off of it, but luckily we've got 4 years to climb up to the top. And some of the routes might be a bit of a dead end. We might need to go back. Some of the routes might get us all the way up to the top, and some routes might go back, more resembling a game of snake and ladders maybe. But as long as we don't lose sight of the mountain top, and even if we separate out from each other for a bit, we'll always be trudging up. So if I was to pinpoint one of the strategies on the left, so for example, the top one there is empowering youth and community for nature and climate action. If I follow that thread along, I'm going to go third down there, empowered disadvantaged and isolated groups. So these are people in the community that don't participate in climate positive behaviours at the moment. So perhaps the biggest opportunity for uplift. So from grey to green demographic. Then to wed it into longer term allows for communities to live more sustainably. And if we then bed that into SLM or sustainable land management, we'll hopefully get some of those longer term impacts. And the bottom right corner one for me is something I'm particularly keen on, which is community well-being, health and livelihoods, because there's a bit of a blurred line between our health and environmental health. You know, we are part of the we are part of the environment and the climate as well. So theory of change. So just in a quick whiz through about the project structure really, and well funded by the lotteries, so the Climate Action Fund. So there's a lot of CAF projects across the UK live right now. They're all staffed and running. So have a little look at maybe if there's other CAF projects online that have caught your eye. And it was enough money to put a really good team together. So of the 1.6 full-time people in coordinating posts, I'm apparently in one, and I'm supported by Dr. Stefan Price from Exeter University in the 0.6, and I've got a team of 4 community animators or animateurs, if you're trendy like my colleagues in UNESCO on the mainland in Europe. And these people are deployed into one of 4 community hubs across the biosphere to really supercharge some support. Now, of course, then they've got a full suite of activities and a bank of expert partners as well. Okay. Now, I like this photo of a sycamore leaf because it's 5 points. What's the point of a project? Well, apparently it's got 5. So community-led action that is further reaching and better connected. Community-led climate action, which is better equipped. And what I mean by that is, yeah, they've got some probes that they can stick in the ground and do their fennel red readings for river water quality, but they've also better equipped with knowledge and behaviours as well. So the ability to articulate climate change people. I think we all know about a community speed watch group, which might get that wrong every now and again. Good intention but the ability to comment on the ground might be a little bit different. Green careers. So rather than creating an army of ecologists or geographers, it's more about employable green careers. And then if we do believe that our young people in school, the job titles that they might possess in 10 years' time don't even exist yet, it's better maybe to build up those KSBs or knowledge, skills and behaviours rather than try and get them on a career pathway early doors. And finally, communities which are increasingly nature rich, and finally, establish community hubs. And the funder likes this because it's like twinning. So a group in Ashrainey might be several years ahead of a group in Bideford. So rather than Bideford going it alone, they just talk to Ashrainey about how they went through arduous things like risk assessments and insurance and whatever else. Also, there's other places in the biosphere that, for example, a group close to the coast might have never encountered a leaky dam before. Or there might be some groups that are going, what's stopping us getting a beaver in our little stretch of the river? And there'll be other areas in the biosphere for which beavers are flourishing. Okay, now the plan then, so she's looking at it with the binoculars here, and you'll sort of get the idea that the first year of the project is all about looking and listening, particularly to some of the quieter voices, which the funder uses to describe people that are often underrepresented within usual community action in the homogenised masses of North Devon. I'm a big fan of co-design, which I'll touch on towards the end of the call. And it says there in the second paragraph down about these 8 climate hubs overall by the end of the project, but 4 in the first year to start with. Okay, so she's still looking for the plan with those binoculars. She's taken off the lenses now, so she's got a bit more luck. Big theme in those bullet points there about young people working with land managers and landowners, maybe double or triple their age, but it's all about people working with people here. Big fan of giving some sort of awards or qualifications, recognizing great achievements that young people be proud to put on a CV or discuss at their first job interview. I was lucky enough to be an employer for a good number of years, and one of my first questions to these 19 or 20-year-olds who would be coming to do a great year of kayaking on the north coast of Devon was, how did you spend the summer? And it was always really nice if they said, oh, I did something called John Muir, and I planted some trees and made some bird boxes. And yeah, that's a much more employable person than somebody that said didn't really do much. Towards the end there, it says about creative celebrations, but also creative knowledge exchanges. I think we've had enough climate reports now, and people can read them, and Jess and Jess particularly probably read more than most. But the people that haven't ever picked up a journal before, maybe it's more about poetry, art, storytelling, to try and get that creative knowledge exchange. Again, a little link there about twinning. Okay, now here's some contractors that have joined me onto the project. So these are my indirect staff team, which I try and supervise and help out. It's worth keeping in mind if you are based up in the biosphere that these people are fantastic. So 361 Energy, they work at decarbonisation, both in domestics, but also in businesses and schools. Beeford Arts, so that creative knowledge exchange as well. We've got a national park, statutory body there. And finally, Plastic Free North Devon, experts at campaigning, getting messaging just right. North Devon Voluntary Services, or NDVS, to support those community groups with all those fickle things like insurance and whatnot. And finally, West Country Rivers Trust, because it's really important that, there's me at the front of the kayak there. If I fell out, I want to keep my head above water. Let's change that. Okay, big fan of themes as well. So themes of outcome, so art, research and development, themes of empowering young people, connecting communities, raising awareness, legacy and sustainability. Themes of activity and actually doing stuff. So with young people of all ages across the community, but particularly those disadvantaged groups, landowners as well. So farmers have had an absolute pummeling recently. I'm sure we've all seen the SFIs being withdrawn with 30 minutes notice. Climate and wildlife champions within those, and trying to sort out some work placements for young people in North Devon within those Biosphere business partners that I gave mention to right at the start around green skills. Themes of output. So these are all your dates and numbers. So 4 plans, 1 per hub, 6 activities, 4 competitions, 4 placements, etc., etc. And this is just me crudely copying and pasting. Now, our fellow project managers, if you've had to do a very big unwieldy project, it sounds like quite a lot to do in 4 years. So luckily I'm blessed with this little Gantt chart here, which is something that you might want to develop for any sort of climate action plan at the school level. And even if you don't use a Gantt as a method, you probably do informally. So if all of us on the call were planning a holiday in France in 4 months' time, there's loads of stuff that we probably need to do between now and all of us sipping a glass of red wine at the base of the Eiffel Tower. So need to make sure our passports are in date, swap our pounds to euros. We need to learn a bit of French. We need to. So, and you sort of work backwards from there, from that deadline. So we're just about on the communities project to flip over from Q3 to Q4. So it's a 4-year project, and every year broken up into quarters. The deep green there suggests that this is what I should really be focusing on as a project manager. The mild green, sort of looking at it as it's passed me by, and white, not really putting much energy or resources into it there. Okie cokes. Now, every couple of months or so, those of us who look after funded projects, and it's all public money at the Biosphere, is to submit these executive summary reports. And these go to Andy, as Jess mentioned at the start of the call, but also some of our trustees. Now, it also is really good for talks like this, because what I can do is just copy and paste all of the actions that myself and the project staff have taken over that time. And just in the past sort of 9 months or so, we've been able to do quite a lot of good for North Devon. Okay. So I said that I'd leave us hopefully with a couple of things just in our back pocket, that if we are trying to inspire a bit of change or accomplish something a bit complex that might not be so popular at school, I've always enjoyed relative levels of success, but these couple of little things that I've just sort of had in my back pocket. So one is an influence participation method called co-design, and the other is a behavioral change model called COM-B, capability, opportunity, motivation equals behavioral change. We'll just briefly touch on them both before we end in the next sort of 10 minutes or so. I hope that's okay. So I thought it'd be useful just to sort of share what the sort of agreed definition of co-design really is. And it's all about, crucially, bringing people with a lived experience of either a service or a product or an output into designing it right at the earliest stage. And for me then, who works in the community, it allows for the triple whammy of improved services, improved satisfaction, and building trust between somebody that might be leading a project or initiative, that people that then receive it. And my colleagues in Devon Mind, the mental health service, would call it an influence participation tool. And with influence participation, it really gives a nod then at the idea of a full process here. So people that are involved from the start are also involved at the end of it. So those people who are maybe shaping and developing a survey to go out and check what climate literacy might be at school or in the local community, these are then also the people that are then delivering the output or the mandate of the survey for the next sort of 18 months or so. So co-design is really defined by this whole idea of like deciding together a little bit. Just going to try and avoid this sunbeam. Look, I'm being chased by it across the office. So if I there we go, come through a little bit here. Now it doesn't happen by accident, but I'll touch on that maybe in the next slide there. But really playfully, that last little bullet point on the blue box there, everyone taking part has an equal level of power, which is absolutely crucial, really. So it's non-hierarchical. So sometimes when I've gone through a process of co-design through that research, development, and brokerage, we've come up with a really good plan that might involve students, it might involve staff, parents, etc. It's then almost like you find the person who actually then signs it off, which might be a member of SLT or a governor or whatever, and that's when you then involve them. And sometimes I've got the experience of that going, that was really good 6 months work, Tom, but this is actually what we're going to sign off here, pal. So those decision makers need to sign off on the process at the start rather than the outcome of the process, which sort of lets down co-design a little bit. Here's the 5 principles of co-design on the right-hand side there. So inclusiveness, equality, collaboration, transparency, and empowerment. So it's good to just have those maybe in the back of your mind as you go. So this slide here then is a bit more about the process than the principles. So actually what you're doing. And as usual format. There's no secret then that the first thing is you need to get people together quite early on. Now, it says product there, look, so people with the relevant skills and experience come together to create a product. And sometimes people get a little bit uncomfortable with the use of that word, and I recognise that. But for the purpose of co-design, no, we're not, designing the product of a handbag that we're going to launch out across all markets, across Scandinavia or whatever. The product might be a summary term for training materials, booklets, website, any type of service or policies or a program for young people. And it again brings together those people involved with delivery, but also people who are then going to experience maybe the program, and it allows you then as the facilitator of co-design to pick out any own goals quite early doors. A classic example of co-design that we work with North Devon Libraries on is libraries are really inclusive environments, right? And for a lot of provincial rural communities in Devon, the local library is the community hub. So as you go in, the next time you go into the library, have a look at the desk, because it's usually an absolute exemplar of principles of co-design. It might have ways to summon help. It might have ways to share that English might not be your first language, or you might need other methods of communication. But a little bit of a miss that libraries did a few years ago was to have a great big black mat outside the front door of a library. And if anybody's ever worked with people with dementia, they view sometimes black mats due to depth perception as a great big hole in the ground. So if there was somebody trying to access services in the library, they're met with a crevasse. So if only via co-design, they had invited in people that might have dementia in that earlier stage, you wouldn't have made that little gaff there. And again, as I said, these people agreed to sign off on the process rather than the output of it. Okay, and then here then is sort of the recipe, if you like, as you go down. So identify your participants in the program, gather those insights, create solutions with those people, implement the solutions, and the bit that tends to get forgotten, especially by me, is evaluating those outcomes at the end. Now, I should mention candidly that co-design isn't a thing that runs itself. And if it's the overall strategy or the overall method, you then as a facilitator or the project manager or whatever might have loads of little facilitation workshops or conversations or lessons or activities in your back pocket. Then you can attach to each one of those. So you might use any one of those in order to elicit those conversations, opinions, capture them, have value recognized, and all that type of stuff. So now I've said, we're all supposedly an expert in co-design. I'll tell you how I've messed it up a few times. So as I've said, my background is in outdoor environmental education, and for my old colleagues in kayaking or rope work or archery and things like co-design isn't really a recognizable term within the outdoor environmental education crowd, I'd suggest. And for a lot of practitioners in the outdoor industry, they do recognize something called learner-led session design, which is really championed, as I said there in the top bullet point there, by forest school practitioners. So that level 3 practitioner, they might not know how the next 5 hours of their session goes, but they've got a rucksack full of stuff, binoculars, rope, fire seals, etc., and they're really going to be led by their client group of 20 children as they go around. Now, those forest school practitioners often feel quite a lot of pressure, particularly if the environment of that delivery doesn't lend itself very well to when that practitioner is asked by either a senior leadership team member or governor or a parent of a child going, so what are they up to today? Now, the only answer the forest school practitioner should give is, don't really know yet. But I've been that person at the gates of a South London woodland about to take in a bunch of children on a holiday club, and there's some nervous looks by parents going, what exactly are we dropping our kids off to here? So is it really co-design? Maybe. I kind of have a view here that it's pretty impossible if there is an unavoidable level of responsibility and hierarchy when I was working with those children or taking a group of geographers out kayaking on the river to have a look at downstream characteristic change, or Bradshaw's model as it is in the geography textbooks here. They're looking to me as the kayaking coach to keep them safe. So there is a elevation of trust and responsibility, expertise. It's all there. So it's really hard then to convince them that their opinion is as valid as mine maybe on that. Okay, so was it really co-design within the professional practice groups that I've worked in? Maybe. So, currently chairman of One Atlantic. So I sit between my 300 members or so of, local GPs, occupational therapists, wellbeing coaches, psychiatrists, whatever. And then the North Devon Primary Care Network. So these are your NHS commissioners, Bideford Regeneration Board, the local authority, whatever. And every year I need to submit a membership priorities document of what we're working on this year, what are the members really struggling with in order to ensure that various funding streams are diverted in the right way. And how I do that is to send out a questionnaire. I onto the 200 active members and the 200 inactive members who I need to represent. I also might do some drop-in sessions and workshops, and then maybe try and chase down some viewpoints that haven't been able to interact with questionnaires at that point. So go and visit them in their office and give them a call, going, "Come on, I need to communicate what you're looking after for the next year or so." So was it really co-design with that one? Maybe, maybe not. Bit of a time pressure for me. So I had a looming deadline. I need to get this thing done in 4 weeks. So with the idea of letting these conversations happen, facilitating it, making sure it's inclusive and equitable. If there's a deadline there, I'm just kind of pushing forward as that project manager. We need to really, really, reach those outcomes, reach those deliverables. And did I really give myself enough time to explore the process fully and meaningfully? Co-design? Ooh, maybe not. Okay, and this last one here are just a few community programs that I've run over the last sort of 5 or 6 years or so. So, Connecting Actively with Nature was an active Devon funded thing handled by the local authority, but it was in the domain then of sort of commercial and charitable providers to then deliver it. It focused on behavioural change for over 55s who might not be living a very active lifestyle, but they want to do now. So, it's been 20 years since I've been on a bike, Tom. I want to relearn how to ride a bike. I haven't changed an inner tube for 40 years. Let's have a bit of a go with that. Holiday activities and food, or HAF. This is something that is in its final year of delivery now, and it's for children in North Devon schools who might be on benefits derived free school meals while they're at school, but outside of term time and holidays when the schools are shut, who's cooking that child that food? Falls to the household to pick up that extra meal a week or extra meal a day. And for a lot of households, that might be somebody in the household skipping that meal, usually a parent, hopefully not a child. So HAF was all around developing inclusive programs for children outside of term time that they can come and have a warm, home cooked, locally sourced meal in the middle of the day and have a session outdoors before or after that. And finally, we had NCS, National Citizenship Service, who unfortunately, folks, have packed up now. So again, it was announced over Christmas time that it was being sort of amputated from the national government, and it was one of the big successes, in addition to equal right marriage, that Cameron managed to get over the line. And they did a local offer called Skills for Life, which to have a funder in Brighton tell me in North Devon going, you know, North Devon, we don't need to design the program and you then have to deliver it. Have a look at what is the challenges that are facing young people, those NEETs, not in education, employment and training, and give them a life-changing experience, residential opportunity. Let's go surfing. Let's how to fix a car, and then hopefully that will boost their employability and help them feel better about themselves. So, was it really co-design? Well, with CAN, what I had at the centre I worked at was a self-named group of older folks, and they called themselves Young at Heart. So unfortunately, that funding stream was winding down, and I was really hopeful to slot in another funded provision as that program ended. So what I did is talk to the guys who had been, chipping onto Young at Heart for the last few years and going, what was crap? What did you like? And I realised that actually the sessions can do one. It was more around social. It's more like a social befriending club, and it didn't matter whether we were doing archery or a Rocky Shore survey or going up to Exmoor. It was mainly having 4 hours with peers. With holiday activities and food, I had the Appledore Adventure Club, so a group of young people that came to us for outdoor activities. And again, similar questions. Going, if you could invite a friend to come, what would be the first thing that you'd want them to do? And that pretty much led on program design for me. And then finally, with Skills for Life, what I did is I worked with a couple of other non-mainstream um, youth organisations such as Wings in Bideford, but also Space Youth Service. And these, particularly Wings, looks at students that have either completely disenrolled from school or they're at danger of disenrolling. Also, next steps education as well. Just working out what do we actually need in North Devon to be that tonic. Was it really co-design though? Probably closest to co-production. So co-production is another method where you kind of have an idea of what you want to roll out. So it's that archery session, it's that Rocky Shore survey, it's recycling in a school. You kind of know what you want to do. And co-production is more about helping people or a community or an organization or fellow employees or whatever reach that inevitable outcome, and you're using every facilitator trick in the book in order to reach them there. The point of co-design is you don't know what the finish line is like. So for all those sessions, I kind of knew that inevitably we were going to get on a minibus and go kite surfing. We were going to go and have a swim in the river. We were going to do all these things, but of course that's what the staff team were trained to do. And that's what the kitchens were trained and resourced in order to provide food for, and all of that. So I kind of knew that I had my Argos catalogue of sessions that I was going to wave in front of these people here. How I got there, yeah, pretty friendly, talking to user groups and whatnot. But my colleagues in that commercial setting would have said, Tom, it's not program creation, it's not co-design, it's not even co-production. It's just market research, mate. You're looking at what the customer wants and then providing them it. So is it really co-design? Not sure, but that was my intention anyway. So the last little one here is then about combi or comb, but people in NHS hate me when I say comb, and it's all about capability, opportunity, opportunity, motivation leads to behavior. And the idea is that any behavior that we have, so everybody on the call, whatever action you take, if you could call it a behavior, its components or determinants are always capability, opportunity, and motivation. So if you subscribe to that and recognize that, if you begin to tinker with those at the school level, you might be able to get that level of behavioral change that you like. Now, it's handy for us as individuals or organizations or groups, but as I've said, it emerged out of the healthcare and wellbeing professional field. So it might have more standing there. But so if you do Google it after the call, you'll get loads of stuff about um, habit changing organizations, so how to encourage people to stop smoking or drink less wine every single week and things like that. Now, in order to perform a particular behavior, us as an individual need to feel psychologically and physically able to do so. So that's your capability. You need to have the social and physical opportunity for that behavior. That's the opportunity, obviously. And you need to want or need to carry out the behavior more than other competing behaviors, which might share those capabilities and opportunities as well. And that's your M at the end, that's your motivation. Now, each of these components interact with each other. So any intervention, that you lead on must target one, two, or all three of these in order to maximize your chances, folks, actually getting that behavioral change across. So an intervention might be creating an opportunity or boosting capability somewhere in colleagues or staff or children, students, parents. But more often than not, well, not more often than not, some of the time it's about changing perceptions to recognize that that capability or opportunity are there already. And that barrier, that perception, that barrier didn't actually exist at all. And that's when you put on your coaching hat, I suppose, at that moment. And as I say, always, barriers are often to do capability, opportunity, and intervention might just be removing those barriers. Weirdly, I found that motivation can almost take care of itself. People want to get thinner. People want to get a higher paid job. They want to turn up to work on time. So if you can take care of capability, opportunity, it's almost like motivation takes care of itself. But I tell you what, folks, nothing kills motivation faster than something bad in capability and opportunity. It kills all motivation. It's too hard to do that. I can't get to work on time because the traffic is really crap. I can't get, I can't change my my diet because food's too expensive. So nothing kills motivation faster than that. So what you might want to do then is to break down that big success of behavioral change, which for those of us on the call might be climate positive behaviors, into 3 or 6 mini successes. So have you been able to give them psychological capability? Have you been able to give them a social opportunity? And if you sort of chase down those, you might get the overall big one, which is that behavioral change maybe. And it can be handy to sort of reflect on that when you're leading those interventions. So myself and a couple of other colleagues, we just sort of look across to each other and go, have you swotted that? That classic SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. When you're about to launch something or try and do something a bit daft or brave, you go, SWOT it. So, for example, a behavior might be, and again, you can see why this is used a lot in health and well-being, is it might be an inactive person becoming an active person. So that person might believe that they're not capable of using gym equipment for exercises. They don't know how to lift weights. They don't know that scary treadmill. It's got a computer on it. I don't know where to start. So that's your psychological capability is perceived not to be there for that person. They might also hold the belief that kit like that is for healthy people. They won't have anything in the gym available for me at entry level. Um, so you then, as the intervention leader, you might just run some training, right? You might go, come with me, I'll train you in the gym equipment. Let's have a look at that treadmill. I'll break it down for you. And actually, all this kit can be adapted for all abilities. So no matter how you want to use it or how long for, there'll be a setting for that and away we go. That individual still might possess the idea that the gym is expensive and cost prohibitive, which then denies them the opportunity to go and pay for that membership. So that's your physical opportunity there. And they might feel social embarrassment. So they don't have a pal or a friend to go with them for the first time into that gym. So they don't have the social opportunity to do that. So you then, as the intervention lead, might go, let's go for a no cost walk around the park, a social walk. We're going to get a few of us together. We're going to try and do 2 or 3 laps, then go and have a cup of tea. Cost is free and it becomes a bit more social. So again, you've given them the opportunity for behavioural change with that. Now, I said sort of motivation kind of take care of itself if you are able to give them capability and opportunity to maximise behavioural change. But again, these coaches or weight loss aficionados or physical activity leaders, whatever, what they would use if motivation still wasn't there, because that person at the moment being inactive is the dominant behavior due to high capability and opportunity to adopt that behavior. So a coach might look to highlight long-term impacts, maybe to impacts on behavior to instill that motivation. So yes, right now we're going to relax and chill out, but long term, if we do this behavioral change, that might give them motivation with that. So there's no escaping my background in outdoor environmental education. And as soon as I saw behavioral change COM-B, breaking it down to you need to do these 3 things, Tom, in order to get behavioral change, I was like, it's fire triangle. That's all it is. And some of us might have even taught this in the chem lab or physics lab at school. But when you try to light a fire, every bushcraft instructor will say you need to have oxygen, you need to have fuel, you need to have heat. And if you try and light a fire with fire steels or 2 sticks rubbing together, you've got your fuel, those are the sticks, you're trying to give heat to it. But if you're doing it underwater, where there's no available atmospheric oxygen, you're never going to light a fire underneath water. So if you're trying to instill behavioral change at a school, organization, or a community, or an employer, or amongst a peer group, friendship, family, whatever, and it's not taken. So why is that uncle still voting that way? And he tells us at Christmas, why has the school not adopted recycling at a school level, and it still goes into a Euro bin and gets taken away and goes to landfill? Just make sure you've done the fire triangle basically. And still, though, I should recognise that even if you have your oxygen, heat, and fuel, sometimes, guys, it's still really hard to light a fire. Don't I know it? When I had that group of young offenders in Croydon as a youth worker trying to light the fire in order to get a bit of a brew on and to cook some sandwiches or burn some sandwiches on the fire, sometimes it just wouldn't light. Embarrassing for me, but at least I've maximised my chances with that. The other little bit then I'll say is that there is then some parity with behavioural change going back to our colleagues in health. And you kind of think, like, if they're trying to do behavioural change with somebody trying to stop smoking, the motivation is there. So stop smoking or you will die. It tends to be the biggest motivation boost, but still those people won't adopt behavioural change. So even when it's most urgent and it's so obvious that something needs to happen, we need to stop using single-use plastics on the planet, otherwise the planet will die. There still won't be behavioural change potentially at all community levels or organisations or households. So even when everything's there, you still might not get it because behavioural change is some of the hardest thing to go with. And it's also quite hard, folks, to identify what the hell is a behaviour. So is recycling a behaviour or is that an action? Is having a look at who you bank with at home, Barclays Bank to Nationwide to whatever, is migrating your accounts to a bank with better green investment portfolio, is that a behavior? Is separating wastewater and rainwater at school so it doesn't go into combined overflow and to combined discharge, is that a behavior? Maybe not. The overall behavior might be that the school adopts more climate positive, becomes a place for climate positivity. That might be the only overall thing. But when you're going through co-design with an organization, with individuals, identifying the behavior that you want to really nail and get your shoulder behind it as a group, if you have used co-design in order to do COM-B, in order to get climate positive behaviors, identifying and endorsing one thing that we can change at school might be a really good start in order to get that wider piece there. So that's where I'll sort of leave it. And I said it would be a bit of a rocket through what the North Devon Biosphere gets up to as a UNESCO designation, a little bit about some of the projects that I've attempted, and I will say attempted over the years, and then just a couple of little models that I've just sort of had in my back pocket of co-design and COM-B. And if you do recognize them as this could be quite useful to have at school or an organization, whatever, what I've really liked in the last year or so, having interviewed and inducted more and more Biosphere employees, is if somebody's going to do something like Appledore, we're going to go and make some bird boxes on the weekend. It's just quite nice to just go, Combi, have you thought about capability opportunity? Oh, I've not thought about opportunity. I'm going to do it in the middle of the week. Those families can't get there in the middle of the week. I need to do it on the weekend. Oh, okay. And it just sometimes it's been quite helpful for me amongst fellow practitioners in outdoor ed and wherever else just to go combi, and it just catches something maybe at a little bit of an early stage. But that's me, folks.
Thank you very much, Tom. That was super informative as
Right.
always. I'm sure there's loads that everyone on the call can take away and apply to to their schools, not only with fellow peers and colleagues, but also with the pupils as well. So
Yeah.
thank you very much. It's a wealth of information. If you're happy to share your presentation, that would be
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah. Love to.
We slightly run out of time, so people might have to go at this point,
Yeah.
including myself. But what I will do is, if there are any questions, um, I'm just going to leave the call running, and then Tom might be able to take questions for the
Yeah.
next 10
Yeah.
minutes or so, if that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hopefully in time we'll be able to have more of a discussion to make sure that everybody's going well with Our Schools Our World, and any support that you need. Please do reach out to Bethia and I by email or arrange a call separately. But like I said, Bethia will be contacting everybody to arrange call times, so that you can have a kind of one-to-one update date with her. But honestly, do reach out if there's any specific questions or things which you're struggling with, or you need a motivation boost. Then please do get in touch before that, either to me or Bethia. Uh, we both pick up emails most of the time, and yeah, I will stop the recording. But please do reach out to Tom for questions for the next 10 minutes or so. And Tom, I'll hand over the baton to you because I've got to run and pick up my children, otherwise
Yeah.
locked
Yeah.
in.
Cheers, Jeff.
And yeah, all the best to all of you, and I'll catch up shortly.
Nice one.